what we're alluding to is we've actually got a body built for an entirely different purpose. It's basically a caveman's body for a space age. So it's actually built to do these things to protect us. Okay? So adrenaline slows time down. That's another thing it does. One of the interesting things they did when they found out that adrenaline really creates this frightening sensation is the idea of the ride obviously was to frighten the pecker out of people on the ride. So they found that people were more frightened at the end than they were at the beginning. So what they did is as this cart comes up over the top, it momentarily stops just as it starts to go down the drop. And that's enough time for the brain to totally saturate the body with adrenaline. So the ride from there on down is truly terrifying, okay? Because now you're on your body's drugs. So every feeling that we have is manufactured out of our body. And that's the way our heuristic mind talks to our intellectual mind, okay? You know what it's like when you meet someone and you don't feel good about it? That's what's happened is the heuristic brain, side of your brain, which can multifunction, by the way, ladies. That's where multitasking comes from. The intellectual brain can only do one thing at a time. You try counting and saying the alphabet at the same time, real hard. The heuristic side of the brain can do a whole multiple of things at any one time. Take driving a car, which is another reason why we defer a lot of stuff down to heuristic memory, because we can do a lot of complex things. We've got to learn them. We've got to get it into our auto response. But once we do that, we're away. Okay, every feeling we have is a chemical reaction. Within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, you're going to make 11 different decisions about them. Ron Willingham's a very famous speaker, said this. And that is the heuristic side of the brain helping you out. So isn't that amazing? When you see somebody for the first time, you've made 11 different decisions about them. Now, how can you possibly do that? That's what Malcolm Gladwell calls thin slicing. All right? In the blink of an eye, we make decisions. Now, again, what's that about? If you go back to our caveman brains, you can see that being able to make decisions quickly is actually a real advantage. You see, if it was left to the old intellectual side of the brain, we'd be there thinking about it long after, we should have been out of there. So that's why our bodies are built for this particular way of working. Now, is it interesting? Anyone here in HR? No? This is a problem in the HR industry for obvious reasons. Imagine if you just met someone, within 7 seconds you've made 11 different decisions about them. What the heck are you going to do with the other half hour of the interview? I mean, you've already made up your mind. What do you think happens with the other half hour?
Justify.
Exactly. You see the pattern again? Emotional response, intellectual justification. And we're built to do this, you see. The interesting thing we now find about the brain is it does it the same way all the time. Doesn't matter what's going on. We take exactly the same approach to everything. So the same thing occurs with brands. Within seconds, people will have made a decision about your products and services. Okay? And then they're going to look for justifications. They were right. So, first impressions count. First impressions count. Okay? Now, I mean, these sayings have been around for a long time, but how much attention and notice do we pay to them? We just usually pay lip service. Incredibly important. I just come back from Perth, and when I asked these Australians what was missing, they said nothing. But I was at a conference in Christchurch, and there was an American woman, a very eloquent, very talented lady, come out to speak, and she put this map on the screen, and as soon as that map went up, she lost all credibility. Because it was in Christchurch, you can see why. So what she was saying was incredibly important, but a little thing like this totally destroyed it for her. It was really unfortunate, because I imagine someone else would have made the slide presentation up. But the reality is our brain is, again, tailor-made to look for tiny inconsistencies. All right? So get the little stuff right, because that's where the intuitive brain is looking for answers. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? I mean, in nature, is the bear going to come straight at us? Probably not. It's going to be stalking us. So we've got to be alert to tiny things that tell us that things may not be right. So you see, again, our brain is built to think this way, and we need to approach our branding and marketing exactly the same way. Another thing our brain, by the way, these issues, there's 14, what I call 14 secrets of the subconscious mind. I'm writing a book at the moment called The Skeptical Brain, and these are just some of the of what I call the secrets. Now that can be a bit disturbing for some people to look at. I mean, you'd wonder why should it be? Because it's just a face with 2 eyes and 2 mouths photoshopped onto it. But of course it doesn't make sense. And what the brain constantly does with that image is try to make sense of it. That's why we find these types of little optical illusions so intriguing, so annoying. Because you see, the brain wants to resolve. It's not interested in what you're looking at, it's trying to resolve what it's seeing. It tries to understand it, and that's not what it understands. Does that make sense? So our brains are constantly working based on available information. Faces don't have 2 sets of eyes and 2 mouths. Now we've got a problem. So the brain tries desperately to resolve it, which makes you feel really sort of awkward and uneasy, because no matter how long you look at that picture, it ain't going to change. Okay, our brains hate ambiguity and seek resolution. We get used to everything. Our friends in TVNZ will tell you that. So what happens is, you know, once in the morning, this is a good example. For instance, if you pull a jersey or shirt on, your skin feels it straight away. You can feel it. But what happens within 15, 20 seconds? You can't feel it any longer, can you? Imagine if your body was hypersensitive when you sat down, anything, your body continually felt it. So what happens is the body has a way of switching off. It does it with everything. Have you ever been somewhere and a chainsaw or a car started up outside? First of all, you hear it, and then what happens is the brain blocks it out. Still there, and guess when you would notice it again? When would you notice the sound again? Yeah, if it stops. So the brain's very good at understanding the start and the end and the beginning of things, okay? These are basic principles of how our brain works. We need to understand this, because when we do our branding work, these are the things that we've got to include in the work that we do. Okay, so our brains quickly zone out on constants. So as everything remains the same, nothing's changing, the brain gets bored, just switches off. Title of the book, Skeptical Brain. If there was a meter in our brains which said every single decision that we made, the meter sat between optimism and pessimism, that would make sense, wouldn't it? That would be fair, that would be a pretty obvious way of setting the system up. It doesn't work like that. The needle is constantly jammed down into the pessimistic side of the brain. So we've got a skeptical brain. We were born with a skeptical brain. Again, what do you think that's about? It's about survival, isn't it? Again, go back to the caveman's brain. It's better to be skeptical and wrong and alive than it is to get it wrong the other way and be dead. So we've got a natural pessimistic brain. Everything we approach from a point of skepticism, which is why trust is so important to us. You think about that. Because it means you can take this out of the equation. When you trust someone, you take it out of the equation. You cease to become pessimistic. Okay. Interestingly enough, it's the pessimistic side of our brain, it's the heuristic side of our brain that is truly pessimistic. So what it does is it has predetermined ideas about what it knows about the world. Okay? So that's why we have prejudices, stereotypes, biases and paradigms, and our life is ruled by them. They are predetermined, pre-packaged bits of information that tell you about life. And it's great. It's the best description is like Googling it. You can Google stuff over here. Down the other end, it's like running it past a lab. It takes a bit longer, but you're going to get a more accurate answer. But hey, most of life's problems can be resolved down this end. Just Google it. You know, we'll figure out that most of what we do doesn't really matter that much. When you've got a decision to make that does matter, in comes the systematic conscious brain. All right? We believe gossip more than we believe scientific fact, and Max Planck Institute have proven this. okay? And